right, welcome to the latest episode of BizTech Twists. I am Bob Coppedge, aka the Crotchety Old Geek, and we're going to talk about, well, topics, and often around business and or technology, but then we're going to try to add a twist to it. And that twist could be one of perspective, it could be one of metaphors, history, it could be whatever, because who knows what's going on through this head. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, today's topic, I actually wanted to talk about the evolution of the concept of IT, or information technology, and really focused on, well, me. And by me, because I'm so important, but also because I'm old. And I've been in the IT business since, honestly, I first started working on computers back in 1975. Yes, they had computers back then. PDP-8, a computer that only used paper tape and did not have any hard drives, floppy drives, any other kind of storage and network or anything. And we used terminals that had 4K of RAM and basically walked to school uphill both ways in the snow in the middle of July. But the reason I'm saying this is because back then, when we talked about IT, we didn't. We talked about DP, or technically EDP, electronic data processing. And the reason being is because all we did was really process data. We took numbers, we crunched them, we moved them around, and we then ran tons of green bar reports that just showed these numbers. It was incredibly faster than doing it by hand, but that's all we were doing, processing data and electronically. Why electronically? Because prior to that, data processors were actually human beings. At least I'm told they were humans. I still think they're from the planet Zontar, but anyway. But the idea is that it moved forward from EDP to DP, and then it was pretty much DP for a while, and then we came up with IT, information technology. And we went with information technology that sounded a little bit more modern, and it was, and this is really in the 70s. And actually to the 80s, where we really started talking about the technology and the actual information. So we were using technology and we were using information, and that was it. So that was cool. But here's the thing. As we move forward through the 80s and the 90s, we really were focused on the technology. We were still doing the same thing. We were still automating accounts receivable, payable, inventory, fixed assets. We were doing all of those normal IT things, or normal business processes. But we were doing the same thing, but electronically. And we were doing that to make it better, faster, more accurate. We could then take the data and run tons of reports. I can't tell you how many trees I killed. It was a lot. And one of the companies that I was IT director for early on, I was actually technically the EDP manager. We truly printed out, I would say at least 2,000 or 3,000 pages of very large green bar paper every week, just so that we had some kind of proof. But anyway, so my point is that at that time, it was really IT with a capital T and a lowercase I, because we weren't doing that much uniquely or that much inspirationally, whatever you want to call it, with the data that we were collecting. And we were always looking for the technology to improve. And by that, I mean, we got new processors, faster processors, more memory, more hard drive, faster hard drive space, move from tape to disk, multiple platters, all of that kind of good stuff. But it was all just ways so that we could do more with that box, with that computer, in terms of processing power and processing speed. We also improved it as far as the networks, the network cards. We went to 1 megabit per second to 10 megabits per second to 100 megabits, gigabit, but we were doing the same work. So we stuck with lowercase I, capital T. Then sometime around, I think the mid 90s or so, we started saying, well, we've got all this data. What can we do with it? And we started essentially doing business intelligence. We were starting to ask what if questions. We were starting to extrapolate or interpolate the results of the data. We were starting to take all of the history and actually ask questions and get answers so we could be better in terms of whatever organizations were doing in terms of empowerment for their clients, for their goods and services, however they were delivering. At that time, I think it was capital I and capital T, because the technology was still moving forward. But it was also the use of the data, the use of the information. We're creating, well, honestly, totally new industries. Whether you call, even prior to Facebook, we have MySpace. And prior to MySpace, we have CompuServe. Genie, America Online, and all of the bulletin board systems that allowed us to do more creative things with the data becoming more information. So to me, that was, and again, I'll say that was starting around 95, and I'll say that went through about 2010 or so. That was the uppercase I, uppercase T for those optimists. For you pessimists, the lowercase I, lowercase t. But information and technology both received the same amount of fanfare and drove the same amount of increased value to our goods and services that we're delivering. But now, over the last, I would say 10 to 15 years, now I think we are clearly in the capital I, lowercase t.
Are you fed up with reactive IT providers who take too long to respond, let problems fester, and nickel and dime you for every little thing? Say goodbye to those frustrations by choosing Simplex-IT, home of Amazon's best-selling author and BizTech Twist host Bob Coppedge. As Northeast Ohio's friendly neighborhood MSP, Simplex-IT has been providing top-notch managed and co-managed IT services since 2007, supporting hundreds of clients locally and across the United States. With a managed service provider like Simplex-IT, you'll benefit from proactive maintenance, 24/7 monitoring, and streamlined technology that will help you grow your business. Visit simplex-it.com for more information and to start experiencing stress-free IT today.
Now, technology is still moving forward, but it's moving forward at a snail's pace, in my opinion, compared to what we're doing with the information. And why is that? Because the technology has gotten to the point where it can power the cool things. And yes, I'm going to drop the buzzword AI. However you want to define AI, however you want to use it, from an expert business systems to documentation generating or code generating, whatever, that's doable now because the technology has matured to the point where now the information is usable in a fast enough way so that we could do these incredible things. So now you're seeing more and more organizations, the startup companies, the ones who are really generating a lot of buzz. It's because of what they're doing with the information. It's not because of what they're doing with the technology. And again, technology is still moving forward. It's still happening, but it's the information that's driving it right now. And so what does that mean for you? Well, depends on where you are. In terms of this whole process. For those of you right now who are entering this arena, as far as just getting involved with IT right now, well, think about where it's going to be in 20 years from now. It's going to be, the information is going to be all over the bloody place. And you're going to be able to do some incredible things with the expert systems. But you're going to have to know how expert systems work. You're going to have to know how to use these systems to become even more productive than normal. And it's interesting because you're seeing more and more of a debate over what is the value, and value both in terms of a marketing standpoint. In other words, if I want to sell this product as well as consume it, what is the value of content that is generated through the EI pieces? And I think that debate's going to be going and getting more and more interesting moving forward. I'll even say that I go to a board gaming conference down in Columbus that has a bunch of vendor tables and the like, and they often have people who are selling the things that they've created, usually arts and crafts and the like. And it could be paintings, it could be books or the like. Well, some of those vendors are now going to have stuff that's been generated either by a combination of AI as well as humans, or completely by AI. And the question has come up, should that be identified as such? And should the value of that be cheapened somewhat? Because it wasn't done by real people, or it wasn't done completely by people. And honestly, I think that's, I don't think that's a legitimate complaint, because you could make that same claim about cooking. You could make the same claim about just about any profession. I remember back in, again, I'm old, so I remember back in the 70s where we had people complaining that I knew how to use a calculator and I wasn't using a slide rule. Or I wasn't using the log tables to look up the value of a logarithm in a book instead of using just a calculator. And people were saying that I would be less valuable because I didn't know how to do that. And I think a lot of this, especially as we get into the I portion of IT, a lot of us are being empowered through the use of especially expert systems, especially for scripting and the like. We can have a technician, whereas back in the 90s when I was a CIO, I would have roughly 40 to 60 PCs that were managed by one technician. Well, now it can be a couple hundred, depending upon the needs and requirements. And I don't think that's going anywhere, except further along on the IT superhighway. Anyway, so that was basically the rant I wanted to do. I think that the concept of IT, in terms of separating the I and the T, we don't talk about that enough. But I'd like to hear your feedback on that. So give me some thoughts, some comments, and don't forget to share this, like it, tell friends about it, tell enemies about it. What the heck? They deserve to know this sort of stuff. And with that, I will talk to you next time. Bob Coppedge, Crotchety Old Geek, Biz Tech Twists.